Okay, so this afternoon on my show, I've got a very special guest. I've got Amy Bingham from Madrid, and Amy's a bit of a cheese and wine expert. She's going to give us some tips and advice and also tell us about her fantastic tours she does up in Madrid. Hi, Amy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me on the right way. It's nice to be here.
So, Amy, judging by your accent, you're not Spanish or British. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
That's correct. I was born in Tucson, Arizona, and my family split between Texas and Arizona now. And Madrid has been my home for just over 10 years. It was never kind of the plan to be here for 10 years, but if any of your listeners have been to Madrid, they might know it's a really incredible city and one that's pretty hard to leave once you start living here.
Yeah, I know Arizona pretty well. I've been there a few times. I've got some friends out there many years ago. And it's very similar climate out there. The landscape is very similar, Arizona to Almeria. Very dry, very barren, and very hot. So, Amy, you take people around Madrid on these tours, cheese, wine, food, and experiencing the delights of Madrid. Is that right?
That's right. So what we specialize in are experiences that really explore the different neighborhoods of Madrid. You know, Madrid is this huge capital city, the third largest city in Europe, but every neighborhood, every individual sort of area in the city has a totally different vibe, has a totally different sort of reason why you would go there. And so our tours focus largely on the Malasaña neighborhood. And this is a really sort of trendy neighborhood that has kind of one foot in the future and one foot in the past. And so what we try and do with our tours is not just, eat good things and drink good things, which is absolutely fundamental and why we're all here, but also introduce you to, Jose, who cuts the ham, and to, Roberto, who serves the olives, and all of the people that really make up the fabric of this neighborhood and make Madrid such a unique place to go out for tapas.
Sounds great. You always get a better experience if you know somebody that can personally introduce you to the locals. So these tours you do, Amy, tell us a little bit more about these personal tours.
Absolutely. So we have 2 public tours that you can book online. We have a maximum of 8 guests for each of those tours. We have a daytime tour that visits the traditional market. And so you'll kind of eat your way through the olive stand and the cheese stand and the other different stands in the market, and then have a tapas lunch at the market stall that's been in the same family now for 2 generations. And all of the foods that they serve are made using ingredients in the market. And so we have that as our daytime experience. And then in the evening, it's all about tapas and wine. So if you're a wine lover like me, that is the tour to go for. We try 6 different types of Spanish wines throughout the evening, each one paired with its perfect dish to go with it, as you kind of have this sort of epic night out in the Malasaña neighborhood, kicking things off with, your cured meats and cheeses, all the way through kind of the heartier raciones, shared plates, and a little blind wine tasting of red wines.
Yeah, we have raciones down here as well. It's a little bit bigger plate of food than a tapa. So tell us, what would you pay up there? What people expect to pay for a beer and a wine up there in Madrid at the moment?
So I think this word tapa is kind of universally used outside of Spain to mean kind of different things to different people. But I would say here in Spain, the word tapa means something totally different everywhere you are. So down in Almeria, a tapa might be, a piece of toast with some delicious things topped with it, or maybe some croquetas or something like that. Whereas here in Madrid, our sort of free nibble, our free tapa that comes with a glass of wine or a beer is usually going to be some awesome olives or some potato chips. And so that will always come free with your drink, almost always. And so for a caña, which is a tiny little beer, 5 sips, we like to say, perfect for a hot day in Madrid, and a little bowl of olives to come with it, you're usually going to pay between €2 and €3.
Well, that's a pretty good price, Amy. We pay about €3 or possibly $3.50 in Almeria City now for a beer or a wine with a plate of tapa, but it is ordered off the menu, so that's not bad price up there in Madrid. I thought it might be a bit more expensive than that. Here, one of my favourite dishes is paella negro, or arroz negro as they call it, a black rice. It's paella. I always say paella when I'm speaking English, but it's actually pronounced paella. Tinted with black ink squid. One of my favourites. Have you tried that? Do you get that up there, Amy?
Oh, I love it. In fact, there's a tiny little paella restaurant in my neighborhood. I live in the La Latina neighborhood that does, I think, one of the best arroz negros I've ever had. But the key to me for arroz negro is actually the aioli, the garlicky mayonnaise that they put with it, because that
Yeah.
squid ink kind of flavor can get very intense, but that aioli cuts through it and gives you kind of that garlicky hit. And you're just like, this is Spain. This is what I'm here for.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favourites, and although it doesn't always look that good, it's worth a try. It is amazing flavour. So, what sort of special dishes would you have up there in Madrid, Amy, that we might not be able to get down here?
Ooh, now that's a really good question. One of the things that I always love going out for, because it's kind of the most non-committal version of eating a meal, is what they call tostas. And so they're thick slices of bread topped with all sorts of delicious things. And the whole idea behind the tosta in Madrid is that we have these tiny little tapas bars all throughout the city. They get absolutely slammed with people on the weekends. And so you're standing and kind of juggling your drink, juggling your food, and the tosta is this ingenious way to get the food from the bar to your mouth without actually needing a fork and a knife. And so they just use the bread as the vehicle for all the tasty things. One of my favorite tostas in town, they do salmorejo, which is a garlicky tomato emulsion. Then they top that with ventresca tuna belly, some roasted red peppers, and then a little sprinkling of chives over the top. Not only is it beautiful, it is delicious and goes perfectly with a nice glass of Seco de Ello white wine.
Yeah, similar thing here, and also in Pamplona. I was up there a couple of years ago, and they do the tapas on a piece of long French bread, which makes it a bit more like a shovel. You can actually get more tapas in your mouth, and yeah, that shows you how big my mouth is, doesn't it? But or what a glutton I am. But what about cheeses, Amy? There's some great cheeses in Madrid. Can you recommend any nice cheeses that British people might like to try?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many great cheese options when we're talking about cheeses in Spain. I think if you're in Madrid, the key is not necessarily the type of cheese you order, but where you order it. There's quite a few specialty cheese places where you have people that know more about cheese than anyone else I've ever met that can make a cheese plate for you of really interesting small production cheeses that you might not find elsewhere. So one of my favorite places in town is a tiny little bar called Carbonera, which is in the Conde Duque neighborhood. Now at Carbonera, the owner, Marcelo, is a cheese guru, a true cheese guru, judges most of the cheese competitions. And so the cheeses they have there change every day, but you can tell him a bit, I really like creamy cheeses or really like blue cheeses, whatever it might be, and he'll construct you this perfect plate with the added bonus that they have a pretty spectacular wine list to go with those cheeses as well. So I always opt more for the place rather than a specific cheese.
Sounds lovely. So yeah, onto the wine now, Amy. And us British, we like a drop of wine, especially on a Friday night. I know I do, like opening different bottles. So what can you recommend to us, Amy? Are you a red wine person or a white wine person?
Yes, all of the above. It depends on the day, depends on what it is, but I do love a good glass of wine. My partner's doing dry January, and I was like, "Look, hon, I support you entirely, but I cannot join you in this effort."
So what would you recommend, Amy? Something that we might be able to get down this part of Spain?
One of my favorite wines, particularly if you're looking for sort of a price quality ratio, something that's really inexpensive but really spectacular, is a wine called Laya, Laya. And this is a Garnacha Tintorera. So it's a really dark, intense wine from the Almansa region. And smooth, beautiful, easy to drink, goes really well with food or without food. And for me, it's really hard to find a bottle that I think is as good as this for a price as low as this. Usually you find it in a shop for anywhere between 5.5 to €7.
That's not a bad price, and that's a red wine, yes, Amy?
Red, yes. What's cool about this wine is it's made using this grape called Garnacha Tintorera, which is one of only two grapes in the whole world that is actually red on the inside. So almost every red grape, if you were to peel it, would be white on the inside, and you could press it and make a white wine out of it. But Garnacha Tintorera is different. It's actually got red pulp, which means that any wines made using this grape are just deep, dark, extra red in color, really kind of beautiful wines.
And what was that one called again, Amy?
Garnacha Tintorera is the Spanish name. It's also referred to in some areas as Alicante Boucher. Not easier to say.
Okay, I'll put a link to these wines and recommendations from you in the information page a bit later on. So going on to white wines then, Amy, I'm a bit of a white wine buff as well. I do like my Cava down here. It's pretty cheap. Mercadona around 260, €2, 260, something like that. I think it might have gone up a little bit. But yeah, I do like some a little bit more expensive Cavas as well for special occasions. Do you like Cava, Amy? And what's your recommendations for white wine?
I am completely with you on the cava front. I love some bubbles. And cava is a really interesting wine because it is the first wine region in the world that requires all of its producers to produce their wines organically. Now, there's a lot of sort of legislation around this and what to look for and all of that. But the main focus or the main point, I would say, of this is because cava is organic, it's probably going to give you a lot less of a headache. So go ahead and buy that €2 bottle of cava. Any other wine, I would say, avoid the €2 option. It's going to feel horrible in the morning. But with cava, because it's organic, even the really inexpensive cavas are just a little bit better than I think the other wines you can get at a similar price point, and also will give you a lot less of a headache. And so I am a huge proponent of cava right now.
Okay, I'm going to leave a link below or in the information page about these recommendations of yours, Amy. But tell us a little bit about the tours. What time is the best time of year? Because I know it gets pretty hot in Madrid. I was up there in June and July. It's very, very hot up there. So what is a good time for British people to come and visit Madrid?
I would say spring or fall. We get sort of the extremes when it comes to seasons here in Madrid. It is very cold here right now and very wet today as well. But when we get March, April, May time of year, all of the flowers in the city start blooming. The city really comes to life, and it's the perfect time of year to sit out at a terrace, sit out in a plaza, have a glass of wine or a little caña as you kind of sit out in the sun before it gets too hot. Even the end of June can be very toasty here in Madrid. And then July is it's like trying to live on the surface of the sun. In August, the city pretty much shuts down as everyone flocks to areas like Almeria, pretty much anywhere with a coastline. And then in the fall, it's beautiful as well. So kind of late September, October is a fantastic month. November starts to get a bit chilly, and then December, January is very cold.
So we've done the wine, the cheese, Amy. What about the ham? I'm a ham lover as well, and I'm sure you are. There's some fantastic hams up in Madrid. What do you recommend? Can you give us any tips on hams in Madrid?
Oh my goodness. Ham is one of those things where I try to forget that it exists because otherwise I have to eat it every day. It is incredible, right? There's just nothing like good Spanish ham. One of my favorite places to go in Madrid for some ham is a little shop that's on Calle Arenal, which is just between the Sol, the central plaza Sol, and Opera. So really central part of town. And this little shop called Extreme has what I would consider to be some of the best cured meats in the city. They also have cheese plates, but I would focus on the meats there. And their black label ham is life-changing. It's fantastic. They also have a pretty good wine list as well. So, great ham must go with great wine.
Yeah, I've tasted some pretty good hams here in Spain. As you say, it's famous for the hams. But they can be quite expensive though, can't they? If you buy a leg of this ham, it can range from 2, 3, 400 euros and even more.
Well, up to €1,000 for a leg. Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, the sweet spot is the red label. I love that the last sort of 15, 20 years or so, they've implemented a color coding system to tell you how the pigs were raised and how the ham is produced. And when we're talking about the red label, it means that your ham is at least 75% purebred Iberian, and that Iberian pig gets all of the marbling through the meat, which is where that beautiful flavor comes from. And the red label means that the pigs have been eating acorns, and acorns are what make the magic happen. So acorns have a lot of oleic acid in them, and as the ham cures, that oleic acid breaks down the pork fat and turns it into something more similar to a nut fat. And so when we're talking about red and black label ham, we're talking about a type of cured meat that literally melts in your mouth because those sort of nut fats melt at room temperature. And so it's really a very different experience between kind of making that jump from the green label, which is a pig that's been fed on cereals, still free range, but not eating acorns, to the red label where they have been eating acorns, and you get that sort of melty magic from the red label.
Yeah, the red label I think is one of the best ones. Yeah, I did notice the colours in the ham, is, as you say, with the acorn fed is completely different. And yeah, I didn't like to ask the price. I think it was quite expensive.
Yeah, maybe don't ask. Get a little bit, just 100 grams. 100 grams is probably going to be about 20 euro, and it'll be sort of a special thing. But I would always caution, if you are going to get sort of a vacuum sealed package of ham, to open the package and leave it out on the counter, kind of put it on a plate and leave it out on the counter outside of the plastic for at least about half an hour before you eat it, and let it, as they say, start to sweat. And that's when you're really going to be able to appreciate all of the great flavors of the ham.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Thanks, Amy. Many years ago, my mother came over here on a holiday and she tried some of the hams and absolutely loved it. And then when I went back to the UK on a trip, I took a whole ham in my suitcase. I don't think you're allowed to do it, but yeah, packed the whole thing in my suitcase and surprised her for her birthday with that one.
Oh my goodness, as long as the little hoof wasn't sticking out.
No, it was well packed, but still a surprise for her. So some great tips and advice there. Thank you, Amy. I'll leave a link on the description box or in the information page about these tips you've given us. And thanks for joining us on the show today, Amy.
It was my pleasure. Thanks so much, David. Hope we can take you out for a glass of wine next time you're in Madrid.
For sure. I look forward to that.
Thank you for having me on The Right Way.
And thank you for your tips, Amy Bingham there from walkandeatspain.com. So yeah, over on the information page, my information page there, it's on The Right Way with me, David Wright, or go over to davidwrightonline.com and there's an information page there. Just click on that link and you'll get some tips there and links to Amy's recommendations and website.